All right. For today's book burning, we have Secrets of the I Ching by Joseph Murphy. He has a bunch of credentials. I'm sure probably doesn't matter a whole lot. But the point is about this is that I Ching is a Chinese divination manual from roughly 1700 BC. Translates as Book of Chances, and it's what would be classified as claromancy, which is a form of sortition, or what could be referred to as the casting of lots, where we would typically see the outcome as something that's determined as we would typically consider it to be random, such as rolling dice or flipping a coin. But with claromancy, the belief would then be that this is a way of channeling some sort of message from a deity to inform you on how to progress, what's going to happen next. It's a way of channeling this communication. This is most commonly found in Chinese folk religion, but it's also found in Confucianism and Taoism. I do have an example of how they would do some of this, and this is with what is called an I Ching coin. So in this case, as the coin suggests, it is a form of currency. This is what I have at my house as decoration. But like we would take like an American quarter and you would flip it to make some decision off of it. But in our case, we would take that as random. So today is Thursday Night Football. So they would be flipping the coin to see which team decides who to kick or receive. They would see that as random, but someone that is practicing I Ching with coins would say this is some form of a way for a deity to channel some sort of information to the practitioner. So with that, there's some context behind this from a Christian perspective on divination. So, for example, in Deuteronomy chapter 18, verses 10 through 12, it states, "There shall not be found among you anyone who burns his son or his daughter as an offering, anyone who practices divination," which in this case would be divination, or tells fortunes or interprets omens, or a sorcerer or a charmer, or a medium, or a necromancer, or one who inquires of the dead. For whoever does these things is an abomination to the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord your God is driving them out before you. In Leviticus chapter 20, verses 6 through 7, it states, "If a person turns to mediums, necromancers, whoring after them, I will set my face against that person and will cut him off from among his people. So consecrate yourselves, therefore, and be holy, for I am the Lord your God." Then in 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 17, "And they burned their sons and their daughters as offerings and used divination and omens and sold themselves to the devil in the sight of the Lord, provoking him to anger." So far in the Old Testament, there's many other verses, and I will include those in the description of this video. But so far, we have God declaring that this is an abomination. It will cut you off from his people. It is evil in the sight of the Lord, which provokes him to anger. Now, it doesn't just stop there in the Old Testament. We could go into the New Testament with the epistle to the Galatians in chapter 5, verse 19 through 21. "Now the works of the flesh are evident." So here we're going to get one of these typical listings of vices that you would find in the New Testament. Paul used these a lot. So the list goes on: sexual immorality, impurity, sensuality, idolatry, sorcery. Divination is considered a form of sorcery. Enmity, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, rivalries, dissensions, divisions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and things like these. So if you weren't convinced that sorcery is strictly inclusive of divisions, we have this at the end. It says, "and things like these." Divination would be definitely like sorcery. And it says, "I warn you, as I warned you before, that those who do such things will not inherit the kingdom of God." We then get a similar list in Revelation, chapter 21, verse 8. But as for the cowardly, the faithless, the detestable, as for murderers, the sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and liars, their portion will be in the lake that burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death. That is in reference to hell, your second death after your physical death. I would also like to conclude this with a small story, a retelling of an event that happened in the books of Acts, chapter 19, verses 9 through 20. This is has to do with one of Paul's missions to Ephesus, and it states the following. This is in reference to the Ephesians. And a number of those who had practiced magic arts brought their books together and burned them in the sight of all. And they counted the value of them and found it came to 50,000 pieces of silver. So the word of the Lord continued to increase and prevail mightily. So with that, I think it'd be very appropriate, just like what those in Ephesus did, as they turned away from the sorcery, practices of divination, and other kinds of evil acts that provoked anger in the Lord. I think it's fitting now to remove this book on I Ching from my local community and burn it in the same way that the Ephesians did. So with that, it's my pleasure. Throw it into the burning pit, and then we will accelerate it with some gasoline. And now we will light it.